Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome to Ion Motive. It's been a little while since I've made a podcast episode. I've been busy at school, unfortunately. Exams and projects, things like that are starting to pick up, and it probably will be that way for a little while longer. So these podcasts might not come out on a weekly basis like I try to get them out on. It might be a little more sporadic for a while here until things start to slow down again. But I'm still going to try my best to get these episodes out as frequently as I can. Either way, I appreciate you listening today. Let's get started. My goal today is to help you lose the value of perfection. That might seem like a silly idea at first, like, oh, we should strive to be perfect. Yes and no, and I'll explain that in greater detail later in the podcast. Here's my biggest issue. People use the idea of perfection to justify their inaction. They think, I'm not perfect at this. I'm not going to be perfect when I try something new. So I might as well not ever do it. And that is a terrible mindset to have, because here's the reality. Perfection is an illusion. It's just this thing we made up. It's not even real. It's impossible. You're not perfect, I'm not perfect, and nobody else is perfect, and we're never going to be perfect, so we might as well forget it. Focusing on perfection can prevent you from ever being good. I'm going to say that again because I think it's an important concept. Focusing on perfection can prevent you from ever being good. No wonder you suck at something when you begin, right? You shouldn't expect to just go out and be the best at something, right? Some people have more talents than others. That's obvious. Some people have God-given abilities that help them in certain areas of life, but they're not perfect in every area. They're not perfect in that area, even if they start ahead. So no matter what you want to do, talent really doesn't matter. You have to be willing to fail at the start. You have to be willing to take risks at the start and through the process, because that is how you grow. But if you say, I'm not going to be perfect at this, why do I even bother trying it? Okay, well, you're not perfect at anything, so you might as well forget that. You're not perfect at cooking food. Sometimes you burn food. Sometimes you undercook food. You are literally not perfect at anything. I'm not perfect at anything. Even if I practice things 100 times, do it right 100 times, I could still very well mess up. So that is why perfection is not a great value to have. Overall, I want you to understand that it is okay that you are not perfect. It's okay that you fail. It's okay that you mess up. That's a part of life. We need to emphasize growth, right? Personal excellence. Excellence doesn't say that you're perfect every single time. It just means that you do something very, very well. And even then, you still might mess up. I have a couple of different concepts I want to talk about in today's episode. First of all, if you're a perfectionist, there's a very high chance that it's self-imposed. You are the one who's demanding perfection. I understand there are situations where there is a person in a position of power who's demanding that you are perfect, and that is a different scenario. But a large part of the time when we think we need to be perfect is because we're telling ourselves that. The reality is no one gives a shit if you mess up. I mean, there's so many times in this podcast where I stutter or where I mess up, where I listen later and I wish I had said something another way because the way that I said it wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. I missed out a part of the message that I thought was very important. That stuff happens all the time. When I made my first few episodes, I was very, very, very critical with editing the episodes, cutting out those stutters, cutting out those moments where I took a bit of a pause because I thought, it doesn't sound good. People are going to think, oh my gosh, he's not the best speaker. Oh my gosh, can you imagine that he did that? And then I realized I'm the only one who's saying that. It just sounds like I'm having a normal conversation. Okay, maybe not because I'm just talking by myself here, but you get my point. I'm the one who's saying, man, I suck. Man, that's not perfect. Nobody else really cares. When people come and talk to me, they say, wow, you're doing a pretty good job speaking. You sound confident. You're able to articulate. See, there's an example. You're able to articulate yourself well. So please remember, if you're messing up, nobody really cares, right? Obviously, you might have a coach that gets upset if you make too many errors. Obviously, you might have a parent or a friend call you out for doing some silly things, but 90% of the time, if you're trying to chase perfection, you're imposing that idea on yourself. So just be aware of that. The second thing I want you to remember is that perfectionism could be killing your growth. I recently read a book about growth mindsets and fixed mindsets. It's a pretty good read. It's super interesting. I'll make sure it's on my reading list. So if you want to go on my website and check that out, you can go use the link for it there. If it's not up there, I'll make sure to throw it up there by the time this episode comes out. The important thing to know is that people with fixed mindsets will often only do things that they can do perfectly, and this prevents them from growing. So for example, I like to play basketball with my friends. I play with Tommy and Matt. Those guys have been on the podcast already. If you haven't checked out those episodes, go check them out because they're pretty good. I had a lot of fun doing that with them. But anyways, I play with them and a couple of other guys, and we're pretty competitive. We go back and forth, I'd say. But if I really wanted to be perfect in playing basketball, I would just go play a bunch of 5-year-olds and just own them, right? I would be perfect. There's a good chance I would never lose if I took 2 of those guys and went and played against 3 5-year-olds. We would probably be perfect. Who knows? Maybe there's just one group of 5-year-olds who are just absolute beasts. But I highly doubt that. At the end of the day, what does that prove? Does it prove I'm actually good at something? Does it prove that I'm perfect? No. It just proves that I'm playing down to my competition. I'm not willing to grow. I think perfection is the most important thing, so I'm not willing to fail. I'm not willing to develop myself. Here's an even bigger issue for people who value perfection and have fixed mindsets. They will ignore problems in order to retain the image that they are perfect, which will ultimately lead to a huge catastrophe. In that mindset book I was talking about, there were many CEOs of huge companies who ignored big problems because they wanted to retain the image that they were perfect. They wanted to look good to the investors, things like that. And then ultimately, because they cared so much about their perfection, they cared so much about their image, it led to huge issues down the road. The company failed. Maybe it went bankrupt. Maybe it lost a ton of money, whatever. The third concept I want you to understand is that failure is not final. I would argue, I have not looked up any studies or any correlations or anything like that, but I bet this is true, that there is a strong correlation between the number of times a person fails and how successful they actually are. So the more they fail, the more successful they are. If you don't know who Sarah Blakely is, she is the inventor of Spanx. And to be completely honest with you, I'm not even exactly sure what those are. But anyhow, when she was growing up, I've heard this story many times on a lot of different podcasts. When she was growing up, after school, every single day when she was eating around the table with her family, her dad would ask her, "What did you fail at today?" And if she didn't have anything to say, if she didn't fail at anything, her dad would be upset because he understood that failure was a part of growth and that if she wasn't consistently failing, she wasn't consistently growing. That's such a powerful idea. I mean, really, at the end of the day, if you fail at something, you can get up and try it again tomorrow. And if it doesn't work then, you can try it again the next day and keep working. Each time it gets easier. You're going to figure out something new. You're going to develop just a little bit. You're going to grow. You're going to get better. All right, let's wrap this up. In conclusion, you need to forget about perfection. You cannot ever attain perfection, so lose the value. Strive for excellence. Strive for growth. Strive for being good. That is all I have for you today. I think this was a bit of a shorter episode, but still think there's a lot of good information here. So if you have not already, please subscribe. Please share with a friend. Please pass this around. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for listening today. I hope you're enjoying these episodes. Like I said earlier, I don't know when the next one will be out. I will try to get it out next week, but we will see what happens with school, with my schedule. I really don't know. I don't want to promise anything because who knows what's going to actually happen. Sometimes it's hard to figure out the timing of things, so We'll just see. Although I might not be able to post these episodes as consistently for a little while, I'll still be posting on my Instagram, my Facebook, and my TikTok, so go connect with me on those if you haven't already. I would love to stay in touch with you. But that is all I got, so I'll see you next time. Until then, remember the Ion motive. Live a charged life.